He's the writer and sole custodian of the popular blog listsofnote.com. And he spent a lot of time hunting down letters that people have written over the years, back when people wrote letters. Some people here remember that, at least. I won't embarrass anyone. So last night, he comes from an event in Southern California with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, B.J. Novak, Dave Eggers, and Thandie Newton, who are reading some of these letters. This was a charity event. And Shaun lives in Manchester, England, with his wife and children. So let's give a warm welcome to Shaun Usher. So Shaun, do you want to talk about the event last night?
Yeah, so this Letters Live, which is a series of live events that started when Letters of Note first came out in the UK. It's crazy. So just famous people, these really talented performers, musicians, authors, they get up on stage and they read out letters from this book, as some of you are about to do, I think. And we've done about 12 of them in the UK, and we've had people like Benedict Cumberbatch, Gillian Anderson, Nick Cave, just these incredible people, just bringing these letters to life, and it's just been the most rewarding experience. So last night we did the first one outside of the UK, in LA. J.J. Abrams read a letter, Thandie Newton read a couple, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it was just the most amazing night. And then I got really drunk, and I've got and I'm feeling quite rough at the minute. But it's great to be here. And this is just the latest chapter of this strange existence.
So how did you start doing this?
I started the website in 2009, but if we go back 13 years, when I first met the lady who is now my wife, 2 weeks after we started dating, she moved away to Spain for a year as part of our university course, which should be the worst possible start to a relationship, but we decided to keep in touch by letter. So we wrote to each other for 10, 11 months, and we fell in love by letter. Really sickening. But it was the best possible start we could have had, because
so none of those letters are in the book, though, right?
I would never publish those letters, no. They're terrible. But we learned so much about each other, far more than we would have learned had we been face-to-face, or particularly, communicating by email or text message. Because when you sit down to write a letter, at least with me and my wife, it's certainly the case, you're far more willing to be honest and open. You'd say things that you wouldn't say in any other setting. So by the end of that 10 months, we were best friends. We'd fallen in love. We were set up for life. So that's when I was bitten by the bug, and I knew that I was going to look into the letter writing as an art form at some point. And then 2009, I started the website, and it just took off really, really quickly. Such a simple idea, the best ideas are. Couldn't believe that no one had done it already. And yeah, I didn't really make much effort to market the blog or push it out there. It did that by itself, thanks to these amazing letters. And then 2013, the book came out after 3 years of slog. Making a book like this is a logistical nightmare, because you have to get so many permissions. It's like something like 300 permissions we had to get for this, and a lot of these people that wrote these letters are now dead, so you have to deal with their estates, and it's an absolute nightmare getting decisions from people. So I was so proud of this book. It's a beautiful thing. It's been translated into 18 languages. So the appeal of these letters really is universal, and the stories within them. And I've just today, I've signed off. We've just finished the second Letters of Note book, which will be out in the UK at the end of this year, and in the US, I don't know when. Probably April. Thank you. So yeah, that's my life is dedicated to these letters, and I couldn't be happier.
So it's interesting that you were writing letters even though the internet was around then and people could text or email, but what made you choose not to?
It was exciting. It was something different. At this point, this was 2000, and I don't know. It was like 13 years ago. So people were emailing, obviously, but not to the extent that they are now. We weren't using Twitter. And there was just the idea of writing letters to each other was romantic. So we just did, and it was great. And there's also when you email someone, there's an expectation that you're going to reply within a couple of days at the most. You know, if you don't reply within a couple of days, you're deemed rude. But with a letter, you can take anything up to like a few weeks to reply, and it's seemed acceptable. And during those 2 weeks, you can really consider what you're writing down. It's a far more considered form of correspondence, and it brings out the best in people and the worst.
Do you find that other people are willing to do that as well nowadays?
To write letters?
To write letters, yeah.
Well, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I just speak to people who love letters. So, but I'm contacted by since the blog started and the book came out, I'm contacted by loads of people who love letter writing, and this has kind of reignited a passion they once had. And I get contacted by loads of teachers saying that they use this book as a teaching aid in school, either to teach about letter writing itself or to teach about historical moments that we wouldn't know about were it not for these letters. You know, these reading letters by someone who was in the midst of these historical events is, I think, the most enjoyable way to learn about history, from the front seat.
Which are your, I guess we have 5 people, counting me, who are going to read letters. So did you want to bring them up, or did you want to talk about some of your favorites first?
I'm easy. I'll read. Shall I read one out?
Sure.
This is the one I always choose. For that. It's just a bit boring, really. But this is one of my favourite letters.
I like words. Is that the one?
It's I like words. Shall I read a different one then?
No, that's good.
It's a job application letter. So this was 1934. There was a guy called Robert Pirosh who was a copywriter. When I first started Letters of Note, I was a copywriter. So I think that there's a parallel there that attracts me. So 1934, he wanted to become a screenwriter. So he wrote this standard form job application letter and sent it to all the movie studios and directors he could find addresses for. And this got him a job with MGM, and he went on to win an Academy Award. So it's the perfect story. And standard form job application letters aren't an easy letter to make sexy, but he's done it, you know. And it was so successful, and it's quite compact. Dear Sir, I like words. I like fat, buttery words such as ooze, turpitude, gluttonous, toady. I like solemn, angular, creaky words such as straight-laced, cantankerous, pecunious, valedictory. I like spurious, black-as-white words such as mortician, liquidate, tonsorial, demimonde. I like suave V words such as Svengali, svelte, bravura, verve. I like crunchy, brittle, crackly words such as splinter, grapple, jostle, crusty. I like sullen, crabbed, scowling words such as skulk, glower, scabby, churl. I like, oh heavens, my gracious landsake words such as tricksy, tucker, genteel, horrid. I like elegant, flowery words such as estivate, peregrinate, elysium, halcyon. I like wormy, squirmy, mealy words such as crawl, blubber, squeal, drip. I like sniggly, chuckling words such as cowlick, gurgle, bubble, and burp. I like the word screenwriter better than copywriter, so I decided to quit my job in a New York ad agency and try my luck in Hollywood. But before taking the plunge, I went to Europe for a year of study, contemplation, and horsing around. I've just returned, and I still like words. May I have a few with you? Robert Pirosh. Just the perfect letter. I absolutely adore it.
He got quite a few responses to that, right?
He did, yeah. He got quite a few interviews with different studios, and he took a job with MGM. And the rest is history. But I found that letter in a really old book that hardly anyone read. It was published in 1970 something. So yeah, quite a find.
Okay, how about our readers?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kate.
So I was contacted in 2011, I think it was, by a lady who said, I've got this amazing letter written by Iggy Pop, do you want to see it? And I'd seen a couple of Iggy's letters before, and they were great, but nothing special. So she sent it to me and said, when I was a teenager, I was having a terrible time. My parents were splitting up. We had bailiffs on the door. I was really depressed. I was near the end. And at the time, Iggy Pop, on one of his albums, had printed his address on the inlay of this album for some strange reason, and said, if you want to get in touch, write to me, and I'll try and get back to you. So she wrote to him and said, I'm having a terrible time, and he wrote this amazing, really lovely letter back.
Dear Lawrence, thank you for your gorgeous and charming letter. You brighten up my dim life. I read the whole fucking thing, dear. Of course, I'd love to see you in your black dress and your white socks too. But most of all, I want to see you take a deep breath and do whatever you must to survive and find something to be that you can love. You're obviously a bright fucking chick with a big heart too, and I want to wish you a belated happy 21st B-Day and happy spirit. I was miserable and fighting hard on my 21st B-Day too. People booed me on the stage, and I was staying in someone else's house, and I was scared. It's been a long road since then, but pressure never ends in this life. Perforation problems, by the way, means to me also the holes that will exist in any story we try to make of our lives. So hang on, my love, grow big and strong, and take your hits and keep going. All my love to a really beautiful girl. That's you, Lawrence. Iggy Pop.
Thank you. It's a lovely letter.
Thank you, Gloria.
And you're doing
I'm
the...
doing the letter about Elvis to President Eisenhower from the teenagers in Montana.
Oh, that one, yeah, brilliant. So this is when he was called up for service, Elvis. The White House received loads and loads of letters from fans of Elvis, distraught that he was about to be killed in battle. But this particular letter is one of my favourites because it's about something slightly different. Having his head shaved, yeah.
Okay. Dear President Eisenhower, my girlfriends and I are writing all the way from Montana. We think it's bad enough to send Elvis Presley in the army, but if you cut his sideburns off, we will just die. You don't know how we feel about him. I really don't see why you have to send him in the army at all, but we beg you, please, please don't give him a GI haircut. Oh, please, please don't. If you do, we will just about die. Elvis Presley lovers, Linda Kelly, Sherry Bain, Mickey Matson. Presley, Presley is our cry. Presley.
Who's next? Samuel Barber, is it?
Yes.
This is Shaun.
So this is Samuel Barber, one of the greatest musicians, composers. Wrote this letter to his mum. Was it his mum or his
Yes.
parents? It was his mum, wasn't it?
Yes. At the age of 9.
Yeah, at the age of 9. It's quite heartbreaking, I think.
Notice, to Mother and nobody else. Dear Mother, I have written this to tell you my worrying secret. Now don't cry when you read it, because it is neither yours nor my fault. I suppose I will have to tell it now without any nonsense. To begin with, I was not meant to be an athlete. I was meant to be a composer, and will be, I'm sure. I'll ask you one more thing. Don't ask me to try to forget this unpleasant thing and go play football. Please, sometimes I've been worrying about this so much that it makes me mad. Not very. Love, Sam Barber II.
Now the question is, would he have been a good football player?
That was in a book of his letters, I think. There's a collection of his letters, yeah. So this was written by Elvis. Strange. Well, his whole life was strange, but this was a particularly stressful time of his life. Elvis Presley used to collect police badges, and he wanted a police badge from every different police force in the US. And the one badge he couldn't get was a badge from the FBI's Department of oh my God, what's it called? The Narcotics.
Bureau of Narcotics?
Bureau of Narcotics. So the way he tried to get one, he successfully got one. He travelled to the White House on his personal jet. And while he was on the jet, he hand-wrote this letter to Nixon saying, I will be a federal agent at large. I will fight in the war against drugs for you, so long as he could get a badge. So he hand-delivered the letter to the White House, got a meeting with Nixon, gave him a gun, and got the badge he'd always wanted. And there's a very famous photograph of Nixon and Elvis in the Oval Office, I think. And it's the most requested
photo in the National Archives.
In the history of National Archives, all thanks to this crazy letter.
So, let's see. He says, Dear Mr. President, I'm not going to do my Elvis voice, by the way.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, you're counting on that. Dear Mr. President, first I would like to introduce myself. I am Elvis Presley and admire you and have great respect for your office. I talked to Vice President Agnew in Palm Springs three weeks ago and expressed my concerns for our country. The drug culture, the hippie elements, the SDS, the Black Panthers, etc., do not consider me as their enemy, or as they call it, the establishment. I call it America, and I love it. Sir, I can and will be of any service that I can to help the country out. I have no concerns or motive other than helping the country out. So I wish not to be given a title or an appointed position. I can and will do more if I were made a federal agent at large. And I will help out by doing it my way through communications with people of all ages. First and foremost, I am an entertainer, but all I need is the federal credentials. I am on the plane with Senator George Murphy, and we have been discussing the problems that our country is faced with. Sir, I'm staying at the Washington Hotel, room 505, 506, and 507. I have two men who work with me by the name of Jerry Schilling and Sonny West. I am registered under the name of John Burroughs. I will be here for as long as it takes to get the credentials of a federal agent. I have done an in-depth study of drug abuse and communist brainwashing techniques, and I am right in the middle of the whole thing, which I can and will do the most good, where I can do the most good. I'm glad to help just as long as it is kept very private. You can have your staff or whomever call me anytime today, tonight, or tomorrow. I was nominated this coming year one of America's 10 most outstanding young men. That will be in January 18th in my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm sending you a short autobiography about myself so you can better understand this approach. I would love to meet you just to say hello if you're not too busy. Respectfully, Elvis Presley. P.S. I believe that you, sir, were one of the top 10 outstanding men of America also. I have a personal gift for you also, which I would like to present to you, and you can accept it, or I will keep it for you until you can take it. That was the Colt 45 that Shaun mentioned. So we have a letter from Elvis and a letter about Elvis.
Yeah.
Were there other Elvis letters that didn't make the cut?
Not really, no. Loads from fans, obviously, you know. He had so many fans, it was ridiculous.
Stephanie's going to read the John Steinbeck letter to his 14-year-old son who was off at boarding school, who said that he fell in love with someone.
Yeah, he was lovesick and needed some advice. This is one of my favorite letters.
So this is my introduction to Letters of No on Facebook, and I fell in love with Letters of No after that. And so it's from John Steinbeck to Tom Steinbeck, dated November 10th, 1958. Dear Tom, we had your letter this morning. I will answer it from my point of view, and of course Ellen from hers. First, if you are in love, that's a good thing. That's about the best thing that can happen to anyone. Don't let anyone make it small or light to you. Second, there are several kinds of love. One is a selfish, mean, grasping, egotistical thing, which uses love for self-importance. This is the ugly and crippling kind. The other is an outpouring of everything good in you, of kindness and consideration and respect. Not only the social respect of manners, but the greater respect, which is recognition of another person as unique and valuable. The first kind can make you sick and small and weak, but the second can release in you strength and courage and goodness, and even wisdom you didn't know you had. You say this is not puppy love. If you feel so deeply, of course it isn't puppy love. But I don't think you are asking me what you feel. You know better than anyone. What you wanted me to help you with is what to do about it, and that I can tell you. Glory in it for one thing, and be very glad and grateful for it. The object of love is the best and most beautiful. Try to live up to it. If you love someone, there is no possible harm in saying so. Only you must remember that some people are very shy, and sometimes the saying must take that shyness into consideration. Girls have a way of knowing or feeling what you feel, but they usually like to hear it also. It sometimes happens that you It sometimes happens that what you feel is not returned for one reason or another, but that does not make your feeling less valuable and good. Lastly, I know your feeling because I have it, and I'm glad you have it. We will be glad to meet Susan. She will be very welcome. But Elaine will make all such arrangements because that is her province, and she will be very glad to. She knows about love too, and maybe she can give you more help than I can. And don't worry about losing. If it's right, it happens. The main thing is not to hurry. Nothing good gets away. Love, Fa.
Let's see, we talked about your favorites already. Have you found anything especially surprising or interesting in going over this?
Loads, yeah. The Iggy Pop one was one of the most surprising. Not that I thought Iggy Pop was a terrible person, but I'd never thought he would, take his time to respond to fans' letters like that at a time when he must have been incredibly busy, presumably, or wasted. I didn't think he'd reply to letters like that. So that really surprised me. There's a letter in the book from Francis Crick who wrote to his son just after he'd co-discovered the structure of DNA, before it had been announced, and he writes to his son and draws him a picture of the...
I thought about that one. That's too long to read.
Yeah, it's not the best one to read, but it's just such an incredible letter, kind of a monumental moment in time. And that's the most expensive letter ever sold, and it's sold just after I managed to get it cleared for the book, and it's sold for £5 million at Christie's auction house.
The Crick letter is the most expensive one?
The Crick, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the most expensive letter ever sold. But it's an incredible thing. And his family was so pleased that it was going to be in this book, which it's lovely when you speak to someone's family or estate, and they're pleased for the letter to go in. It's really.
Is the son still alive? The one that he wrote it to?
Oh God, I don't know. I think he is. Yeah.
So this letter, by the way, if you get the book, it's about 4 pages, and he describes what he found about DNA, and it's full of diagrams and chemical descriptions of it, and it's amazingly accurate, even now. Because they nailed it, right?
Yeah.
We started late, but we have a question here from Scott.
Have you found letters, and then as you worked with them, found them to be fake or hoaxes?
Not really, no. I've been lucky. I've been lucky. Who knows, maybe there's some letters in there that aren't actually, maybe they are fake. But I've not really come across many, no.
That's more of an internet thing.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I take a lot of time kind of verifying the authenticity of these letters, because there are so many fake ones flying around. There's one by Stanley Kubrick in which he supposedly writes, I can't remember who he writes to, but he lets off a lot of steam. And that gets circulated all the time. There's another one by supposedly from Sean Connery to Steve Jobs, I think it was. Yes, I think so. Which circulates every couple of months, and millions of people probably think it's real.
That one's fake too.
Yeah, that's fake. Yeah.
That was the Kurt Vonnegut graduation speech that never happened, but I guess that wasn't a letter. But there was a letter from Kurt Vonnegut in here, right?
Yeah, there's one in there. There's one in the new book as well. Yeah, his collection of letters that came out a couple of years ago is one of the best books I've ever read.
Are there any fascinating letters that you were like, this should be read by everybody, but the estate has not agreed to let you publish?
Yeah, loads. And there's this isn't really the same thing, but there's a Frank Lloyd Wright letter. The architect, a little kid wrote to Frank Lloyd Wright and said, "Can you build a house for my dog? Can you design a house for my dog?" Because Frank Lloyd Wright had built a house for the family years and years before. And Frank Lloyd Wright wrote back and said, "Yes, I'll design you a house." So he designs him a house. You can see the photo of the dog house in there. But in the intro to the letter, so I applied for permission to use the letters in the book, and the Frank Lloyd Wright estate said you can use it as long as you take this one line out of the intro, which was that the dog hated the doghouse, basically, and he refused to sleep in the doghouse. And the last line in the intro originally was, the sting in the tail is the dog hated the doghouse, and the Frank Lloyd Wright estate said you've got to take that out because we don't,
Can you zoom in on this, Mike?
it reflects badly on Frank Lloyd Wright. So now whenever I talk about the book, I make a point of talking about of telling everyone about the dog.
If any of you have been to Frank Lloyd Wright houses or places like that, but this is a pretty funny picture because it looks just like one of them.
I'm the publicist on the book, but I do have a question that has been in my mind. So letters are destined for someone else to read, but in your new book, lists of note, I'm guessing a lot of those aren't meant for someone else to read. Mm-hmm. So how do you see the difference between those two?
Yeah, lists are definitely more personal, I think, than letters. But I think they're less precious. I have less... When I'm making letters, I spend a lot of time wondering whether I should publish these letters, even if I have permission, you know. A lot of them are sometimes a bit too personal to publish. But I've never had that problem with lists. I've never stopped and thought, oh my God, should I publish this? So all those lists are far more personal. They're not as... Does that make sense? They're not as precious, I don't think.
I think we're done. I'm just going to read this very short list by Preston Sturgis of the 11 Rules for Box Office Appeal, since this is kind of box office. Number 1, a pretty girl is better than an ugly one. 2, a leg is better than an arm. 3, a bedroom is better than a living room. 4, an arrival is better than a departure. A birth is better than a death. A chase is better than a chat. A dog is better than a landscape, but a kitten is better than a dog. And a baby is better than a kitten. A kiss is better than a baby. And a pratfall, I'm not going to do one, is better than anything. Okay.
So that kept when I was researching the letters of note, I was looking through the archives and papers of all these incredible people. And I kept finding lists, amazing lists along with these letters. So that's how Lists of Note came about. And the first one I ever found was the first list in the book is a to-do list by Johnny Cash. And he writes all these things he has to do in the day, like drink, eat, go for a pee, kiss my wife, kiss June, his wife, not kiss anyone else. And then the last thing is don't make lists.
Number 1, not smoke. 2, kiss June. 3, not kiss anyone else. 4, cough. Pee. Eat. Not eat too much. Worry. Go see mama. Practice piano. And for notes, not write notes. With that, let's thank Shaun for coming.
Thank you.
We have books for sale, and he'll be available to sign them. Thanks for coming, everybody.